Hello, I'm Chinedi from the Nedu Sewing Club. Welcome to Stitched. So you've learned how to stitch and your garment looks good on the outside, but doesn't look good on the inside. Today I'll be showing you a few seam finishing techniques. So finishing your seams is really important after sewing. It means your garment lasts longer and doesn't fray when you wash. Typically, a serger or overlocker is used to weave the insides after sewing, but if you don't have one, there are other methods you can use to give an also professional finish. So I'll be using these samples to illustrate my point. I'll just pin these two together. I'm pinning together so that it doesn't shake when I'm sewing, so that my stitches can be stable. I'll just put about 2 or 3, I think 3 is fine. So help me measure the seam allowance I want. I think I'll use about 6/8. Yeah, that's what I'll do. So before you start sewing, don't forget to lock your stitch first of all. Sew a few stitches, go back, and then start to sew. And then you lock it at the end again. Nice! Remove your pins. So the first method I'll be teaching today is the zigzag finishing method using pinking shears. So pinking shears are like your regular scissors, but they have serrated teeth, as you can see here. So when you cut, it leaves like a zigzag at the edge. I'd recommend using this method for fabrics that I'd say medium weighted to heavy weighted. 1/4 inch allowance when I'm done. I'm just eyeballing this because I know. Carefully. Oops. And that's it. It looks really pretty, it looks nice. It's quite nice. So you can see your stitch is down here and there's a zigzag right at the end. Super simple. The second one I'm going to be showing you is I call it the zigzag stitching method, in the sense that I'll be using the sewing machine to replicate the weaving finishing that you get from a serger or a locker. It's a little trick that I learned fairly recently, actually. I'll show you how to do it. So you set your sewing machine on the zigzag stitch and about, say, a medium width, small to medium width. I'm going to choose a 1.5 width on my sewing machine and a zigzag stitch. So here's the trick. Normally when you sew, your fabric will cover the entire area just beneath the foot, but this time around what you need to do is to ensure that only half of the fabric is within that area. I'll just tidy this up. It has to be nice and even. Good. So you align the edge of the seam allowance just halfway. So this is how it works. The zigzag stitch goes this way, the needle, left to right, left to right, left to right, left to right. But when the fabric is right halfway down the middle, the needle hits the fabric, hits outside, hits in and out, in and out. So that way it weaves it sort of. Nice and aligned. Put this behind you and stitch. Brilliant. So as you can see, the zigzag stitch wraps the edge of the fabric. because the fabric was placed right in the middle, halfway. I think this is one of my favorite finishes recently because it almost mimics, in fact, I think it does mimic what you get from a weaving machine. And it's very pretty. It looks really nice and professional, as you can see. And it's super easy. I like this method because it makes your sewing machine all in one. You can get more use out of it, like a bit of multi-purpose out of it. So the third finishing is the bias bound method. I love bias tape. It's very flexible, it's versatile, it's colorful, it's so useful. I'll be using this, wrapping this at the edge of the allowance. It secures it nicely, it will not fray. I think it's probably the most secure finishing if you ask me. So you measure the amount of bias tape here's bias tape. It's really very nice. Measure the amount of bias tape that you need. So I'll be using a 1-inch wide bias tape for this. A 1-inch bias tape has, I'd say, like 2 grooves, 1/4 of an inch, and 1/2 an inch, and 1/4 of an inch. So I'll place the edge of the bias against the edge of my seam allowance, and I'll pin a little bit far so the pins don't bother you when you're sewing. I'm pinning vertically this time around. Okay, so I'll be sewing right along the first ridge. The thing about bias tape is that this ridge serves like a bit of a sewing guideline, which is really good. So here we go, to the sewing machine. Threads behind you, or in front of you. Okay. So I position the ridge so that the needle hits that point. That's how I know I'm sewing a straight stitch. Remember? Okay. I'll be using a number 3 width, just an average width. Okay, and now I start sewing. Lock stitch. And lock stitch again. Brilliant. I'll cut off my thread and I'll trim off the excess bias like so. Good. So after sewing the bias tape on one side, you flip it over carefully like this. Then fold it inwards. So that's where you'll be stitching along. It's a narrow area, so I won't be pinning it this time around. I'll just hold it as I go along. Okay, so I'll carefully put it under the foot, making sure that it's an area where the needle will hit. That's really important. And then I start to stitch. Back stitch. Just keep on folding it as you go. Lock stitch. And you're done. This is one of my favorite finishes. It looks so nice and clean. It's so beautiful. You can see the sewing allowance is tucked in within the bias tape really nicely. And it's quite pretty if you ask me. So the fourth method I'll be showing you is called the French seam. French seams are really beautiful. They really conceal the edge of the seam beautifully. So what you do is this. You put the fabric pieces together with the wrong sides touching. The wrong sides touching. So that's the right side. Good. It's also a 2-stitch method like the bias tape method. So what I'll do is this. I'll pin it up so it doesn't move while I stitch. I'm pinning vertically because I'm sewing here. 3 pins should do. And so my first stitch will be about 2/8 of an inch. Okay. All right then. And then I start stitching. A lock stitch. Lock again. So first step is done. And then I would fold it inwards like so, which tucks in this edge like this. And then I'll sew again. So this is the wrong side of the fabric. I've flipped it over. And then I'll sew again about 3/8 of an inch, which effectively, tucks in that bit. It's inside there nice and tidy, and I'm sewing on the outside. Lock stitch. So that's the outside of the garments, the right side, and that's the inside. As you can see, the second stitch effectively concealed the first stitch. Really beautiful. It's so nice. So these are the 4 seam finishing methods. The first one using pinking shears to cut the edge, so we have a nice zigzag shape at the edge, which locks in the seam really nicely. The second one, using the zigzag stitch on your sewing machine, putting the edge at the center, which locks it up really nicely and looks like a weaving. The third one, using your bias tape to bind it. And the fourth one is called a French seam. Really beautiful. So there you have it. You're able to achieve a clean seam finishes without an overlocker or serging machine with these 4 techniques I just taught you. For more sewing tips and inspiration, go to my website, nedu.com. To register for the next NSC sewing workshop, click the Sewing Club link. I'll see you next time. Bye.